Welcome to another deep dive. We have a genuinely fascinating set of source materials for you today. We're exploring an exclusive interview from the May 2026 edition of the eMagazine PreSense.
And just a quick note for you listening, it's pronounced as two syllables, PreSense.
Yes, exactly. PreSense, under their Visionary Titans series. And the origin of this publication actually ties perfectly into the theme of our discussion today, right?
Oh, for sure. PreSense is incredibly unique in the media landscape.
It really is. It was launched back in March 2006 by Prime Point Srinivasan, who, by the way, still serves as the publisher and managing editor.
Which is amazing dedication.
But he didn't just wake up and decide to start a magazine. He launched it on the direct suggestion of former President Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam.
Wow.
Yeah. Dr. Kalam specifically wanted a platform to champion positive journalism. And 2 decades later, it is still entirely run by a group of volunteers and eminent journalists.
Which means there are absolutely zero commercial motives.
None. No advertisements, just a pure dedication to public interest journalism. So in their latest edition, their editor-in-chief, Priyadharshni Rahul, sat down for an incredibly revealing interview.
And we are looking at the English translation of this original Hindi interview, right?
Yes, exactly. She interviewed the Honorable Shri Kishor Makwana, who is the chairman of the National Commission for Scheduled Castes, or the NCSC.
Is it a critical role?
So our mission today is to explore how a leader with a profoundly literary mind is fundamentally transforming this massive constitutional body. We'll look at his track record of fairness and extract his advice for the youth stepping into the political arena. Okay, let's unpack this.
I love that. To really grasp the magnitude of what Chairman Makwana is doing, we first have to establish the sheer historical and legal weight of the chair he occupies.
Right, the context is everything here.
Exactly. The NCSC isn't just a standard regulatory agency. It was born directly out of Article 338 of the Indian Constitution.
And Makwana anchors the interview in a vital piece of history. He points back to 1953 to the Rajya Sabha, the upper house of India's parliament.
Oh. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's speech.
Yes, Ambedkar stood up and delivered an hour-long, impassioned speech specifically about this commission's purpose. His blueprint was clear. This commission must provide immediate, tangible justice to those exploited for centuries.
It was basically about forcing the grand promises of the Constitution down into the dirt and grit of the grassroots level,
Completely. And today, Makwana categorizes the commission's massive responsibilities into 3 distinct pillars.
Right. The first pillar is addressing direct atrocities.
So we are talking about severe physical injustices here. Assault, violent crimes, or scenarios where powerful local factions grab land belonging to scheduled caste individuals.
Yeah. When the local administration turns a blind eye, the commission is the ultimate backstop.
Which brings us to the second pillar, which kind of shifts to the bureaucratic battlefield.
Right. Protecting the rights of government employees.
Exactly. This involves enforcing reservation rosters, ensuring fair promotions, and preventing discrimination within central and state government offices.
And then the third pillar is pure oversight. The commission monitors public sector enterprises and banks.
Places like ONGC, right.
Exactly. They have to ensure that government welfare and financial schemes, like the Mudra Yojana, are actually flowing down to the marginalized communities they are meant to uplift.
That third pillar is so crucial because, financial inclusion is the bedrock of social mobility.
It really is.
So looking at those 3 pillars, it's like the commission has to act as a shield against physical harm, a ladder for fair career progression, and a magnifying glass on the financial institutions.
That is a great way to visualize it.
But, this brings me to a structural question that I couldn't shake while reading his background.
Oh, about his writing.
Yeah. Shri Kishor Makwana is a prolific author. He has written over 30 books in Gujarati, Hindi, and English.
Heavily analyzing monumental figures like Ambedkar and Swami Vivekananda.
Right. Now, it's one thing to be an intellectual analyzing history, but how does an author handle the aggressive, street-level reality of a land grab?
It seems disconnected, right?
It really does.
Yeah.
Doesn't a deeply literary background leave someone a bit too, academic for the bruising reality of this kind of bureaucracy?
That is a very natural assumption. And it's something Priyadharshni Rahul probes in the interview as well. But what is fascinating here is how Makwana dismantles that assumption entirely.
How so?
Well, we tend to think that fighting bureaucratic battles requires a hardened, cynical administrator. Makwana argues the exact opposite. He believes that writers are inherently observers of the human condition.
Ah, so they are trained to see the motivations and the pain underneath a situation?
Precisely. They are sensitive to nuance.
Yeah.
Makwana's philosophy is that when you take a writer's deep well of empathy and combine it with his decades of grassroots social work,
And then hand that person the leverage of constitutional machinery.
exactly, you create an incredibly potent force. Empathy isn't a vulnerability in this context. It is the strategic tool that actually makes the machinery work.
I hear that, but let's look at the mechanics of it. Empathy is a great philosophical stance, but you can't just mandate compassion.
Right. It has to yield results.
Exactly. How does being sensitive actually translate into hard legal outcomes and fairness?
Well, it translates into a metric that is almost unheard of in modern legal administration. The interview reveals what we can call the zero appeals phenomenon.
Okay, this is a staggering statistic. Let's put this in context for you, the listener. Think about any time you've had to dispute an issue with a telecom company, your corporate HR department, or a local municipality.
The friction is immense.
Usually someone walks away angry. Historically, when the NCSC issued a recommendation on a dispute, you would see about 250 to 300 cases every single year dragged into court on an appeal.
Because one side, either the petitioner or the government authority, felt the ruling was unfair, which is the standard baseline for any quasi-judicial body, really.
You expect friction. But in Makwana's 2 years as chairman, there has not been a single appeal filed against his recommendations.
Zero.
Zero. Out of tens of thousands of cases.
We really need to pause on the mechanics of that. To achieve zero appeals in a system defined by historical tension means you are threading an impossible needle.
It really does.
Makwana is steering the fact-finding and reconciliation process so deftly that both the marginalized victims and the institutional authorities accept the resolution as fundamentally just.
And the PreSense interview provides a story from Poom that perfectly captures how he achieves this. It illustrates this concept of weaponized empathy brilliantly.
It's a very tense scenario from what I recall.
Incredibly tense. A 70-year-old mother and her 40-year-old son travel all the way from Poon to the NCSC headquarters in Delhi.
Right.
But a message had gone out on the police wireless that this mother and son were planning to commit self-immolation right in front of the commission's building.
The desperation there is just palpable.
Completely. So the local police intercept them at the railway station, anticipating a massive tragedy, and they march them straight into Chairman Makwana's cabin.
Now, analyze the typical bureaucratic response here. A standard official would surround themselves with security.
Oh, totally. They demand the paperwork immediately.
They might even charge the individuals for causing a public disturbance. But Makwana does the exact inverse.
Yeah, the very first thing he does is dismiss the police officers. He tells them to wait outside.
Which instantly alters the power dynamic in the room. He removes the threat of state force and isolates the human element.
It is de-escalation through sheer humanity. So it is just him, the 70-year-old mother, and her son.
And Makwana notes that he could read the intense, boiling frustration in their body language.
Right. And his first question to two people who are ready to end their lives wasn't about jurisdiction. It wasn't about the legal code.
No.
He simply looked at them and asked, "Have you eaten anything?"
And it turns out they had been fasting entirely without food for 24 hours.
So before he even opens a file, he orders food and tea brought into the cabin.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is a masterclass in structural conflict resolution. Makwana notes that the simple act of feeding them dropped their frustration by 50%.
Wow, just like that.
Only after they had eaten did he ask about their grievance, which turned out to be a severe case of their land being illegally grabbed by local strongmen in Poon.
And because he established that foundational layer of human trust, the frantic panic subsided.
Right, they could actually communicate.
They clearly explained the situation, which allowed the commission to immediately initiate swift, targeted action against the land grabbers. The mother and son left feeling completely validated.
It highlights a crucial mechanism. A favorable legal ruling delivered coldly can still feel alienating and bureaucratic.
Exactly.
True justice requires making the vulnerable party feel seen and heard as human beings first.
That makes total sense in a room with 3 people. But, it begs a massive logistical question.
How do you scale it?
Yes. As a listener, you have to wonder, how do you address the problems of thousands of vulnerable people without the system collapsing? India has over 1 billion people.
Right.
The NCSC covers the entire country. You cannot personally buy tea and sit down with every single marginalized person without the backlog crushing the entire institution.
That is the ultimate administrative hurdle. Empathy doesn't scale if it is solely reliant on the chairman's personal time.
No, of course not.
You have to code that empathy into the actual plumbing of the system itself.
And the data from the interview proves they have done exactly that. Makwana breaks down how they overhauled accessibility.
What did they change?
They built an online portal, they process physical posts efficiently, and they even launched a dedicated WhatsApp number for immediate grievances.
Oh, that's incredibly accessible.
Right, but the true mechanism driving this overhaul is their response time, the 24-hour notice.
This is where the efficiency multiplies.
When a complaint comes in, the NCSC sends a formal notice to the relevant government authorities within 24 hours. Now, why does that matter so much?
I imagine it puts immediate pressure on the local level.
Exactly. Think about a corrupt local official or an indifferent police precinct. Their greatest weapon is time. They bury the paperwork. They ignore the marginalized villager.
Right, they just wait them out.
But when a notice from a constitutional body lands on their desk in 24 hours, that bureaucratic invisibility cloak is instantly stripped away.
It creates an immediate deterrent effect. The local authorities realize the federal spotlight is locked onto them.
Yeah, they panic.
And they resolve the issue because the cost of ignoring it just became too high.
And the resulting clearance rate is historic. The interview states that previously the commission would close around 8,000 to 10,000 cases annually.
Which sounds like a lot until you hear the current numbers.
Right. Under Makwana's leadership, in just 2 years, they closed 44,000 cases.
With plans to close 20,000 more in the subsequent month and a half.
It's unbelievable. And here's the proof that the 24-hour mechanism works. Makwana reveals that almost 90% of these issues are resolved simply by that initial prompt notice.
Wow. Just the notice itself does 90% of the heavy lifting.
Yes. The sheer speed of the institution's presence forces the local administration to self-correct.
Now, it is important to note how Makwana frames this administrative environment. In the interview, he specifically credits this transformative atmosphere to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's positive working style and high-level vision toward marginalized communities.
Right.
He points out that this broader governmental mandate gives the NCSC the momentum it needs, instilling confidence in the public that they will actually get justice.
And just a quick reminder for you listening, as guides on this deep dive, we are impartially reporting Makwana's views, as stated in the PreSense interview.
Right, we're just conveying the perspective of the source material.
Exactly. Which brings us to the second half of our deep dive. Clearing out 44,000 cases stabilizes the present, but to sustain this momentum, you need a new generation of leaders.
You need to look ahead.
Yes. Priyadharshni Rahul pivots the interview to the future, asking about the youth stepping into public life.
And we are witnessing a significant cultural shift here. For decades, the prevailing wisdom in India was that politics was a fundamentally compromised profession.
Exactly. Growing up, the narrative was always, politics is a dirty game. Good, educated people should stay far away from it.
Even the interviewer, Rahul, notes that her own family questioned her choice to study political science.
But Makwana observes that this cynical mindset is receding. Today, highly educated young people are actively entering the political arena, and they are arriving with structured, grand visions for national development.
But there's a practical hurdle there.
A huge one. Let's look at the harsh reality of public service for a second. Let's say you are a brilliant young person from a marginalized background. You want to make a difference.
But politics does not pay a corporate salary.
Exactly. You still have rent to pay, aging parents to support, a family to feed. How does a well-meaning youth actually survive financially in politics without eventually resorting to corruption just to make ends meet?
That structural vulnerability is exactly what derails so many young idealists. But Makwana addresses this by pointing to a deeply pragmatic piece of advice from Dr. Ambedkar.
It's incredibly grounding advice, honestly.
It is. Ambedkar explicitly warned his followers against diving into politics while still studying or struggling. His directive was clear. Secure your own life first.
Right. Establish yourself professionally and financially.
Only once you have achieved that stable footing should you enter public life.
It makes perfect structural sense. You cannot be a load-bearing pillar for your community if your own foundation is crumbling.
Absolutely.
If you are desperate to pay your bills, your activism is compromised.
Precisely. Makwana points out that the modern public often holds this distorted cinematic image of politicians.
Oh, that you need vast wealth, luxury convoys, and a massive entourage to wield influence.
Yes, but his own experience on the ground completely shatters that illusion. He says he has seen countless activists who drive immense change purely through quiet, steadfast dedication.
So you don't need a massive war chest.
No, you need an incorruptible mindset. He draws a profound connection to Tathagata Buddha here, the awakened one.
Oh, that part was fascinating.
He advises the youth that the ultimate qualification for public life isn't capital. It is deep, abiding compassion.
Right.
If your baseline is genuine empathy, you will instinctively understand the architecture of people suffering, and that compassion becomes the engine for effective policy.
And you can't build that kind of forward-looking confidence in the youth without first resolving the historical memory of their community, you know?
Because a nation's legacy dictates its trajectory.
Exactly. Towards the end of the interview, the conversation naturally shifts to the preservation of national history.
This is where Makwana's dual identity as a constitutional chairman and an author truly harmonizes.
Right, because he served on the committee for the Pradhan Mantri Sangrahalaya, the Prime Minister's Museum.
And he emphasizes the unifying philosophy behind this institution. Before 2014, there wasn't a comprehensive space like this.
Yeah, the museum is built on the premise of showcasing the positive contributions of every single prime minister.
Whether they served a full term or, like Chandrasekhar, held office for only a few months.
Right. The museum acknowledges that every leader wove something valuable into the nation's fabric.
It is a deliberate shift away from political tribalism and toward a continuous, shared national history.
And that same commitment to historical preservation realized a deeply emotional milestone regarding Dr. Ambedkar himself.
The timeline on this one is just staggering.
It really is. On December 6, 1956, Dr. Ambedkar took his last breath at 26 Alipur Road. Following his passing, his wife, Savita Ambedkar, began a relentless campaign.
She wanted that house transformed into a national memorial to honor his life's work.
Yes, she wrote countless letters to the successive governments and leaders of the time, pleading for this recognition.
And she was met with decades of bureaucratic silence.
It wasn't until after 2014 that her dream from 1956 was finally realized. Today, 26 Alipur Road stands as a magnificent memorial. The contrast there is stark. Nearly 60 years of administrative indifference overturned by a sudden, decisive shift in policy to finally honor that legacy properly.
But preserving the past is only meaningful if it empowers the present. Priyadharshni, Rahul closes the interview by asking the ultimate bottom-line question.
Right. When you look past the policies and the museums, what has tangibly changed for the Dalit community over the last decade?
And Makwana's answer reveals a total paradigm shift. He says the youth of marginalized communities are rapidly transitioning from being job seekers to becoming job creators.
Which is the most critical socioeconomic leap a community can make.
It fundamentally alters their relationship with the economy.
And we mentioned earlier how the NCSC acts as a magnifying glass on financial institutions. Makwana points out that the rigorous implementation of government initiatives like the Mudra Yojana,
which provides vital microloans and capital to small businesses.
Exactly. That is fueling this shift. He shares a specific, incredible example from a recent trip to Tamil Nadu.
Oh, the factory owner.
Yes. He met a young man from the scheduled caste community who utilized these financial tools to launch his own T-shirt manufacturing factory.
And the scale of that enterprise is what's truly telling. How many people does his factory employ?
600 workers.
600.
Yeah. So what does this all mean? Think about the economic multiplier effect of that single factory. A young man from a historically deprived background isn't just surviving. He isn't just standing on his own 2 feet.
He is actively providing the livelihood for 600 other families.
Exactly. When Makwana observes examples like this, he sees a community that is positioning itself to be a massive driving force in the vision of a fully developed India by 2047.
If we synthesize the core insights from this PreSense interview, a very clear, powerful thesis emerges.
What's the main takeaway for you?
Chairman Kishor Makwana's tenure proves that when constitutional authority is wielded not merely with bureaucratic efficiency, but with the profound analytical empathy of a writer, the entire system transforms.
Yeah.
The most vulnerable members of society don't just receive technically correct rulings, they receive true human justice.
And that brings us right back to you, the listener. Think about your own life, your own workplace, or even your interactions with local government.
How often do we operate under the assumption that efficiency and compassion are mutually exclusive?
We do that all the time. We often believe that to be efficient, you have to be ruthless, and to be compassionate means slowing the system down.
But Makwana's track record 0 appeals, 44,000 cases closed, 24-hour response times, prove that empathy and efficiency are actually the fuel for one another.
It completely reframes how institutions should approach problem solving. Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over long after this deep dive ends.
Absolutely. If a sprawling, historically complex government bureaucracy can be fundamentally transformed by simply dismissing the guards, looking a distressed person in the eye and asking, "Have you eaten today?"
What?
What deeply entrenched structural conflicts in your own life might be instantly disarmed if you chose to lead with radical disarming humanity?
That is definitely something worth examining. A huge thank you to all of you for joining us on this deep dive.
And a special thanks to PreSense magazine for facilitating such a rich, illuminating conversation with their Visionary Titans series.
Until next time, keep questioning the systems around you, keep looking for the human element, and keep learning.